Shalom, welcome to the Jewish View. My name is Rabbi Nachman Simon with the Chabad House of Delmar, together with my co-host Mark Ronich of jbiztechvalley.com and Statewide News Service.
Well, Rabbi, all the way from Washington, D.C., we have a really special guest. We have our area Congressman, Paul Tonko. He was my favorite in the Assembly, and now he's, my one and only Congressman, but he's my favorite. It's like I say my favorite uncle, and then my uncle says, well, I'm the only uncle. But anyway, welcome.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Welcome to the Jewish View.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Rabbi. It's great to join both of you gentlemen, and always a pleasure to share some thoughts with you.
Well, Mark's saying they come from Washington, D.C., but you're our local. I mean, you're there, what is it, half the time?
Pretty much. Our days are 3 or 4 days, our weeks are 3 or 4 days in Washington and 3 or 4 here in the capital region. And I make it my effort to be home every weekend so as to connect with the district. I think it's very important to kind of bring government to the doorstep of individuals into community gatherings. And I can tell you they share. There's a very, very thoughtful district to represent, and they're full of solutions which I like.
What is your district once you're saying, your
Sure.
district?
Well, you know that we were redistricted a couple of years ago, and this is the second term now where I'll represent the 20th Congressional District. That includes all of Albany County, all of Schenectady County, pretty much the Northway Channel of Saratoga County, the western half or westernmost portion of Rensselaer County, with communities like Troy and Rensselaer, Schodack, East Greenbush, North Greenbush, and then the eastern portion of Montgomery County to Route 30A with Fonda, Fultonville, and Amsterdam, and the town of Florida, and town of Amsterdam in that construct.
And you have to have that part of Montgomery County because you live in Amsterdam.
Right. You know, as you'll recall, if not, I'll remind you that the legislative branch, working with the governor, did not get the congressional districts done, and it was punted to the judicial branch. And there, the judge was dealing with an assignment, I think, to strike homogeneity wherever she could. And I'm convinced, I don't know this to be the fact, but looking at the makeup of this district, it's pretty much revolving around a high-tech, innovation, clean energy economy with the boundaries of Saratoga and Malta, Saratoga Springs and Malta in the north, with Global Foundries, into the heart of the Albany capital region with nanotech, and into Schenectady County with R&D over in Niskayuna, and the advanced battery manufacturing facility and renewables efforts at GE. So you have really in that construct of the 20th Congressional District a thematic of innovation, of high-tech, of clean energy, which I would be fairly much convinced was the thinking of the
It's
judicial
interesting.
branch.
You answered my question before I asked. I said, you have Albany, Schenectady, you have such a varied, congressional district, but you kind of answered it that there is a common denominator there.
Right, and it's a very powerful common denominator. A number of forces, a number of think tanks around the country, if not international think tanks, Rabbi, have suggested that this area, the greater capital region of New York, is one of the 5 hottest bits of real estate in the country for clean energy and innovation job growth. And recently, in a repeat visit to the Albany area, Assistant Secretary of Energy Dave Danielson reinforced that statement, and he said of the 5, there are 2 most exponentially growing regions, and the Capital District of New York is one of those fastest growing.
That's interesting because generally, that the idea is that upstate New York is different than New York City. Some people say we should make our own state, but the economy is so in a recession. But really, that doesn't apply to like your district, so to speak.
I can remember clearly in the State Assembly, where I served for nearly 25 years, Speaker Silver and others cleverly saw the map of New York as a way to introduce high tech into various thematics. In the Western New York with healthcare, Central New York with minerals, agriculture in the North Country, and energy in the capital region. And we overveiled that with high tech. And those early investments have proven very fruitful. And now, with the efforts to further underpin, because a lot of this was done with public and private sector partnership, but the feds weren't that invested at that time. Now it's a unique assignment for me to represent the 20th Congressional District as an engineer, bringing that engineering background with assembly chairmanship responsibilities that I enjoyed for the last 15 of my 25 years in the Capitol here in Albany.
Chairman of the Energy Committee.
Right. And now I, in my first 3 terms, have had assignments to science and technology, which is a hand-in-glove fit, and now energy and commerce is my committee assignment. So it's a good opportunity to understand the strengths and the needs of the district, and to do that with a technical background like that which I've developed, and an overpowering energy concept and energy environment theme that I think goes a long way in creating this climate, fostering a climate of innovation, job growth, which I think is so important.
Are you on other committees? Or
No,
you just
Mark,
have the one?
Right. When I got placed onto Energy and Commerce, the first upstate Democrat, by the way, since Leo O'Brien in 1966. It's the oldest committee in the House, dating back to 1795. And when you serve on Energy and Commerce, it's deemed one of those few committees that is exclusive. So if you get named to Energy and Commerce, you cannot serve on any other committee.
Does that make your life easier in terms of not having to go to all these other committee meetings like I remember in the state legislature?
One would think so,
Well,
but what I
not
have found
necessarily,
out,
yeah.
that Energy and Commerce, because of its broad range of issue area, meets very, very often, and that keeps you busy.
So it's like being on 5 committees.
It is, because as the name would suggest, imply, you have energy and commerce, both international and domestic commerce, but it also includes healthcare, including mental health care, environmental issues. So those
Yeah,
are
it is really
heavy duty issues. And
You wouldn't
I happen
think
to
that healthcare and mental health would be in that.
Right.
But it is, so.
Yeah, and it's kind of an interesting clustering that
Yeah.
goes on, but it's been kept very busy with all the communication broadband issues, with healthcare, and all of the action that was involved with the Affordable Care Act and the aftermath, the fine-tuning that continues. Mental health advocacy, which has grown very powerful, and of course energy and environment are buzz issues right now internationally as we address climate change. So you can imagine the activity is pretty
Well,
resounding.
I thought I was missing something when I was looking at which committee assignments you were on, and I found the one, and I didn't see any
Yeah,
more. And I just thought I would.
You weren't missing anything.
But that's not to say that just because it's one committee means that you're a slacker, as they might, you're certainly not. I
On the
mean,
contrary,
but
once
that's
you-
why I wanted you to expand on it, so the audience knew also
Right.
exactly what you're doing,
Well-
and you're forever. I mean, like you were saying, you're pervasive in this district.
Well, I enjoy the connection. I think that, I entered into this business when there were all sorts of impeachment efforts being made towards President Nixon, who I happen to think did some very good things with Clean Air Act and all of these things. Suffice it to say, that was a tarnishing of our image at that time. And I felt, well, you can either complain about it or you can get involved and polish back the image. And it's been a constant challenge for me, and an assignment, a mission, to polish that effort so that you bring a good partnership together with the people you represent, and you as a representative communicating and doing things well. I just wanted to bounce right back to E&C quickly.
Sure.
On Energy and Commerce, I've been given the ranker position, the top Democrat, on the subcommittee of Environment and the Economy. Now we're reformulating, we're reorganizing with the new 114th session of Congress. I hope to maintain that position, but it's been a number of meetings and hearings that have kept me busy with that subcommittee alone. So
Enough to keep you busy.
yeah, enough to stir the juices.
Since you're talking about energy, can I touch on a hot topic of fracking?
Sure.
I have my opinions now. I'm not a scientist. You're an engineer, not a lawyer.
You've got that right.
Yeah, that I
You
always.
worked in the PSC.
I actually very much appreciate it, because you always see lawyers and it's one-sided. I mean, of course, you need a lawyer to make laws, but on the other hand, like you say, you bring in a total different perspective. That's you have to have other expertise besides being a lawyer to represent people. So that's, I think, a very important idea. But fracking is just I mean, on one hand, I mean, a good American, I'd like the money to stay in America. And number two, being Jewish, I care about Israel, and oil is always just also a hot topic, I mean,
Right.
that,
And-
for the Middle East.
And
so.
Israel has done some very innovative things with their energy policy and their economy based on an energy-driven outcome, and oftentimes replicated by other countries and communities to do exactly what they're doing, where they're getting into a clean energy agenda, alternate fueled vehicles and the like.
Are you in favor of hydrofracking?
Well, with the hydrofracking issue, here's my point. I believe that we need to make certain we err on the side of our water supplies. We're positioned very well between the Atlantic Ocean and the largest compilation of freshwater bodies in the world, the Great Lakes. I believe those suggest we're transitioning from an oil-based economy to a water-based economy. If that's the case, do not harm your precious water supply.
Sure.
And so hydrofracking with all these checkoffs, making certain that you have set-asides for contingency funds if there is damage done. These are some powerful chemicals introduced into our ecosystem, into our soils. And again, the community has a right to know what those chemicals might be. They need that set-aside. The byproduct of hydrofracking is an immense supply of water that needs to be cleaned, that needs to be filtered and reintroduced as in a clean state. I don't think there's a community that I represent that is equipped with the infrastructure to make that happen. So there has to be that partnership. And the inordinate amount of traffic, heavy vehicle traffic, is something that accompanies the science. Are there options? Are there alternatives? Alternative technologies. I'm a huge fan of investing in research because we can promote energy efficiency concepts, we can design alternative generation opportunities for energy to wean us off of that gluttonous dependency, insatiable thirst for fossil-based fuels, oftentimes coming from enemy nations that are not kind to us, are not kind to Israel, and we're aiding their treasuries, sometimes to the tune of $400 billion worth of American energy consumer dollars.
Average price of gas as we're taping is below $3 a gallon. I didn't think I'd see that this soon. Have you spoken to your colleagues in North Dakota and asked them, because a lot of those big oil tankers that go through the Port of Albany originate in North Dakota? And I was just wondering if you had a chance to talk to them to find out, is their water being contaminated? What, like you were saying, what contingency plans are there in North Dakota? Because their water is as precious as ours is.
Right.
So, what?
Yeah, I am certain we will get into all of that activity. We haven't had those direct lines of communication. But, to that point of transporting by rail and pipe, rail line, pipeline, both offer certain orders of public safety concerns. And, as we attempt to put together sounder overview, reduce speed for trains, inappropriateness of the 111 cars to transport the oil, which needs, again, to be revamped, we phase those out. These are some of the changes in regulation that the DOT, United States Department of Transportation, is offering through Secretary Fox. As we look at all of these things, increased maintenance and inspection, first line training, first responder training, making certain that is done appropriately and effectively. There are a lot of things that need to be done, but again, it's an example of us approaching an issue in a Band-Aid format. We need the bigger view.
Right.
We need to stretch out, where is our energy policy?
But we already have, we already see the fruits of the labor of hydrofracking at the gas pump.
We do. We see the fruits of labor of depending on fossil-based fuels.
I mean,
but again, Jimmy Carter, ages ago,
yes,
administrations ago, suggested, alternative supplies.
yeah, geothermal, which I'm a big fan of.
Yeah, we need to be transitioning.
Yeah.
As we face these crises, pipeline, rail line safety, hydrofracking, perhaps the concerns that communities have, the impact here on the port, as we face these issues, we shouldn't do them in a vacuum. That silo mentality doesn't serve us well. We should look at a big picture concept and develop as a nation. No nation this large, no economy this great should be without a comprehensive energy plan. And we're not doing that. There are ways we should see energy efficiency as our fuel of choice, as Israel has promoted. We need to do alternative technologies to generate supplies of energy that can create jobs in that outcome, good paying jobs. And we need to do research so that as you develop prototypes that are tested to be true, researchers will have great jobs and the production people will have great jobs as you introduce a new line of products that will enable us to be, alternative in our thinking and independent in our outcome of some of these dependencies that have suffocated our economy.
We're talking about Israel. Maybe we should take a group tour to Israel and check out their energy over here.
There you go.
Congressman, is that a good? I mean, the governor went, and maybe we ought to
Yes.
go also check
And
it out.
and I know he got a lot of coverage with that event. And
I can make sure you're going to get a lot of coverage if you take us along.
oh, there you go. Are you guys the promoters? You're
There
the
you go.
agents?
We got a rabbi and the newsman. What
That's
else do
right.
you need for Israel over here?
Well, there's no denying Israel has done cutting edge
Have you been to
work.
Israel?
I have not.
Okay,
I
well,
have
we
not.
should. I haven't either, so we should really go.
There you go.
There
But
is
they have
part
been
of
cutting
energy.
edge in their energy thinking. And, perhaps they were challenged and prompted by some of the forces of nations that surround them.
Yep.
But nonetheless, it is a sound way that they're transitioning their economy. And that transformation is very powerful for the economy and for the climate, for the earth.
Well, it's interesting. It's interesting they put two things together. I mean, you could tell us the history, but energy and commerce. But without energy, nothing's going to work.
Exactly.
You don't have any economy.
And you can do sound energy policy and create jobs, all while being benign with the environment. People think that they're a separate issue, but they are very much compatible. And making certain that we utilize our environment, be it the sun or water or air or soil, we can do that in a way that allows for us to really advance new technology and, again, to use that American intellect. We cultivate that intellect through campuses and apprenticeship programs. Utilize it. Use it to the max and allow us to be cutting edge. And I think that's the challenge to a society as strong as ours that has had throughout its history a pioneer spirit. And so I love the assignment to Energy and Commerce because we can kind of promote this thinking in the committee. We can do the legislation, the policy development, the resource advocacy that will kind of jumpstart that sort of thinking in policy format.
Well, I wanted to ask you about the upcoming session.
Sure.
And as you were talking about, the committee assignments might be changing or whatever, but we also have a big issue of immigration reform, where the president recently, through an executive order, had this, issued his dictum on the immigration reform. What's your thoughts about it, and what's going to be coming up in the next congressional session?
Well, I look at something like the bipartisan effort that the United States Senate embraced. And they did some tough work, and they got it done in their House nearly 18 months ago. And it's a way to speak to security at our borders, stabilizing our borders. It's a way for a sound pathway to citizenship. And ironically, through the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office, which is nonpartisan, they suggested that that measure would be nearly $1 trillion worth of deficit reduction, some $900 billion worth nearly of deficit reduction. It's an across-the-board win situation. We,
and is that
in our House.
And is that the executive order that the
Pretty
president modeled
much,
it on?
I think he modeled it on that. And, we have dragged our feet for some 18 months. And, every effort has been made. I've joined with colleagues in writing the leadership, invoking them to bring the bill to the floor for a vote. I have written the president, encouraging him to address the issue. It's an economic development issue. You look at, I mentioned the R&D Center in Niskuna earlier when we were talking.
Research and development, yeah.
And the research that's done there is also incorporating internships, but they're PhDs. The PhD internships are really hurt because of immigration reform, where a number of foreign students are securing that PhD. It's not as commonplace with the number of our American students. Farming community needs the immigrants. Healthcare community, the high-tech community. It's no wonder that if these people are given opportunities here,
These
the
people,
deficit
meaning the
reduction,
immi-
the undocumented workers,
Okay.
the people who are in need of a sound pathway to citizenship. And I think that when the president invoked his powers through the executive order, he was stating in a way that, look, Congress, you failed to act. And the 113th session of Congress is replete with a lot of situations where we could have done something and chose not to take action.
And what about
In
when
doing-
Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House? Why didn't, I mean, this is not a new issue. Why
Right.
wasn't some action taken then?
You know, there were a number of meetings, and people were coming to a consensus. And then,
Okay.
that was my first term. I saw a lot of buildup toward some sort of compromise on the issue. It wasn't easy to get to that point. The Senate just didn't do that in a matter of weeks. I'm convinced, had we been leading the 112th
Yeah.
and the 113th, at least the 112th session of Congress, we probably would have seen some sort of compromise brought to the president's desk. But, it's not about partisanship here. It should be about what's most practical for the economy. And as a nation of immigrants, what is our policy? There's just a dire need to bring about immigration reform.
And New York State as a whole is impacted. People think it's all Mexico, but people come from they fly into Canada, come over the border into New York State through Canada.
Right, and we've also been
and-
a port of entry with, a
Well-
little town called New York,
Well, I understand, but you have the Akwesasne Indian Reservation up there, and they walk across the Indian Reservation, and they come into New York State. So we have a lot of illegal immigrants coming into New York
Now-
State in itself up from the North Country.
Right.
People don't realize that.
Exactly, and I would say too that anytime you have the United States Chamber of Commerce, the United States the Farm Bureau, and a number of bipartisan think tanks coming together in unusual format, that tells you there's a pressing need. And it's so, you've got community activists, you've got religious organizations, you've got chambers of commerce, you've got business community types, the farming community, all saying, get this done.
Right.
And the president is saying, look, I gave Congress every chance. He has worked so hard to be bipartisan in his administration. And it's unfortunate that there's no desire to work with the White House. And, if it's just dead on arrival because of it's coming from the president, this president, that's unacceptable.
So do you think there'll be some sort of new initiative that will come from both houses now that both houses are in Republican control?
Well, now I'm hearing talk about, we want to do this with legislation. Well, hello. We've had 18 months, but if you've got legislation, bring it forth.
You think-
And let's debate it on the floor, and let's see what the Senate says. But there have to be those certainties, securitizing our borders, making certain there's a sound pathway to citizenship, and I would hope the result would also be nearly $1 trillion worth of deficit reduction.
And like the president said, you can't deport how many millions of people? 5 million people?
Well, it's interesting because we did a town hall on immigration and refugees because there was so much misinformation being
where was that?
spread.
In Amsterdam?
We did that at St. Rose
St.
campus.
Rose, okay.
And it was interesting to note that dating back to 1980 or the mid-'80s, how many undocumented workers are lined up since then. And I think it was about 12% of the population has entered since this president has been president. The vast majority, overwhelming majority of individuals has been waiting since the 80s. So it tells us that the floodgates haven't been there, as some would suggest, and that there've been many administrations worth of time since we've had the accumulation.
Just on a side, there was a former assemblywoman, Gabriela Rosa, who got caught up in this, and that she had a sham marriage, and she was an illegal immigrant, and she never knew that.
This isn't carte blanche approval. I mean, there are checkoffs here.
No, I know, but we had one in our own state, in our own legislature here, that got busted, and part of the overall corruption going on in the state legislature. But as an aside, I said, this is just an example.
Look, for the great many of us, we have an immigrant pattern. I'm a grandson of immigrants, proud to say that. It's one of my badges of honor. And I'm oftentimes quoted as saying we're a compilation of journeys. And I am so respectful and reverent to a degree about the journeys my grandparents took as young teenagers.
Sure, yeah.
It's about that. It's about the courage. It's about the desire to start life anew here.
My
it's the
grandparents
passion to
also,
make a
yeah.
difference. The passion of this country has always been best expressed by its immigrants.
That's right.
And
I
so,
agree, and we know that.
what are we
but-
fearful of?
But you know,
Let's get it done.
It takes away that that shining city on the hill. You know, that wonderful image that you're creating when it gets tarnished when you get someone like Assemblywoman Rosa doing what she did and being in a public office.
But you know what? I
like,
don't want
way
to
she-
err on the side of the very few.
So- No,
I want
it's
to err
true.
on the side
No,
of the very many.
no,
And I love celebrating our mosaic, our diversity.
Well, you know what? I still credit you when I tell people, when most people think of New York State, they think of the Statue of Liberty, the bright lights on Broadway, and the no. It's the Statue of Liberty, the bright lights on Broadway, and the skyscrapers. Now, when you think of New York State, the silos are our skyscrapers. The bright lights in the milking barn at 5 a.m. are the bright lights of Broadway, or the New York State. And the liberty to farm one's own land is the liberty of New York State. And that came from one speech I heard him say, and I've never forgotten it. It was in the 80s.
Thank you.
And he said, "Oh, you don't have to credit me with it, but I always do."
Yeah, well,
Because
I have
that is
farming-
so beautiful. You
I
have
have-
such a good, nice way of crystallizing images in your speaking.
Well, you know, I think life is poetry. I think there's something glamorous about all the journeys we make and about the walks in life that we take. And we need to respect that and share it. And I have dairy farmer roots in my immigrant patterns of my family. And I shall always work hard and respect the ag community. And they're asking us to get this done, as is the business community. So it'll be a big issue, I'm hoping, either in lame duck or in the 114th.
How many days will you be in session next year?
Well, you know what? The Speaker, Speaker Boehner, is extending that from 112 to 132. I say hooray, hooray, because we need to get things done. And my message to the leadership over the last 2 years has been, let's just do it. Let's get it done.
And when Nancy Pelosi was House Speaker, what was she? How many days were you in?
I don't remember the total days, but it was a very aggressive schedule.
It was rigorous. I mean,
It was-
really,
oh, yeah.
it went too far, I believe, because people were saying they couldn't get back to their
Yeah, I
district.
heard that complaint a lot.
You had to get
but-
Monday through Friday or Monday through
Yeah.
Thursday. There wasn't really enough time to connect with the district. I think you even said there was some frustration
Well,
on
my-
your end because you liked the people-to-people connection.
Yeah, exactly. But I balanced that as best I could.
Yeah.
But my first term was filled with productive outcomes, from Lilly Ledbetter as a social justice piece to ACES, the American Clean Energy Security Act, which was transformational. We were hoping it to be transformational with climate change and energy transitioning. And also the Affordable Care Act, which looked at tens of millions of people to include in the healthcare equation.
Do you have when you sponsor a bill and it's signed into law by the president? Do you get something like you did in the assembly where you could put up on the wall?
Yes, yeah, you get the pen certificate and everything. And
Do you have any of those up on your wall yet?
I don't have them on the wall, but we've
You've had them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you get them.
You
up
have
on
to
the
work
wall.
with the Republicans, though, to get, a little bit of...
Look, Rabbi, I've always made my efforts bipartisan. I'm cognizant of the fact that Republicans support me. I know from the numbers in my many elections. But even if they didn't, it's about an election process in this country that says when the curtain comes down and the election results are calculated, you're
Then
there to serve everybody.
Then you govern. Right.
Those who are of multiple political faiths and those who don't even vote, and those who are too young to vote. So you're there for the entire community that counts on you as the voice. They place trust in you, and you have to honor and cherish that
And that
trust.
was one of the problems your opponents in the past have had in terms of raising money and getting support from the GOP in your district, is that they say, well, give us a reason why we shouldn't vote for the incumbent. And you're doing such a good job. I think that, and you're reaching across the aisle. You're not making this partisan. I think that people who are on the opposite, a different party from you, it might not be just Republican.
Right.
They say, well, we're fine. We're happy with what we have. So, you know, I mean, as you know, in politics, if you're running an insurgent campaign, you have to give the voters a reason why
Right.
not to vote for the incumbent.
Right.
And I
Well,
don't think you give them a reason. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Mark. But, you know, I've often said it's not just your vote that matters, it's how you got to that vote. And, you know, reasonable people can disagree, right? And I think that it's so important to translate that vote into a thought process. And if people don't agree with your vote, at least you can build credibility in terms of, look, this is the sincerity that I want to share with you. This is what I put into the thought process. And, you know, I guess I know my assignment is to do the homework. That's essential to get to that bottom line. And it's not always black and white, it's shades of gray.
Well, we're going to make sure you get an A on your homework assignment, but I think we're out of time.
But we're out of time. But Congressman Tonko, that we love being with you. That was we had you before, and we give you more success, give you a blessing. You're doing such a great job, and continue
you.
success with good health.
Much success.
Thank you, Rabbi. Thank you, Mark. And always a pleasure to be on Jewish View.
Thank you.